Try and keep up with health news. It can feel like drinking from a fire hose, right? Just so much information.
Absolutely. It's overwhelming sometimes.
That's kind of where we step in. Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through the noise, pull out the important bits, the surprising stuff, so you can get the gist without getting buried.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're diving into the April 11th, 2025 edition of 7 Days Santé Conso.
And this one's interesting because it covers, well, quite a range. We've got a big national health push in Morocco, some potentially huge news in diabetes research,
Right.
and even something about the fungi living up our noses.
Okay, that sounds intriguing. So our mission today, unpack this, find the nuggets you need to know. Let's start with Morocco. What's happening there?
Okay, so Morocco has launched this pretty significant national campaign. It's running from early April to early May, so right now, basically.
Okay.
And it's all focused on improving the health of mothers and newborns. The slogan is very direct.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
What is it?
Early and regular pregnancy monitoring to preserve the health of mother and baby. Something along those lines.
Gets straight to the point, doesn't it? No messing around.
Exactly. It tells you they want clear, actionable advice out there. And this isn't just a one-off thing, you know.
Right, part of something bigger.
Yeah, it plugs into their strategy of communication for social and behavioral change, which runs until 2027. It's a joint effort between the National Initiative for Human Development, the INDH, and the Ministry of Health.
So a long-term coordinated plan.
Precisely. They're really looking at the big picture.
And I saw something about the first 1,000 days. That concept seems to be everywhere in global health now.
It really is. They're emphasizing that window from conception to age 2 as absolutely critical for development.
Makes sense. How are they supporting that on the ground?
Well, one key thing is they've developed an online training platform, a MOOC, with support from the World Bank.
Okay, who's that for?
It's aimed at healthcare workers, community workers too, trying to improve their counseling skills and promote the best practices for those first 1,000 days. The first round of training just kicked off in April.
That's a serious investment in their workforce.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it all ties back to their broader national goals, their new development model, the UN's Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. Health isn't seen in isolation.
It's fundamental to progress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can see why they're pushing this. The data shows it works.
Oh, what kind of results have they seen?
Well, between 2010 and 2016, they saw maternal mortality drop by 35%
Wow.
and neonatal mortality down by 38%. That's according to a national survey from 2018. So these sustained efforts, they really do pay off.
Those are impressive numbers. It shows what's possible. And how are they actually getting the message out to people for this current campaign?
They're using pretty much everything. TV spots, radio ads in Arabic and Amazigh, which is important for reach.
Right.
Digital content on the official websites, awareness sessions in clinics, community centers.
Covering all the bases.
And interestingly, they're even using Friday sermons to promote healthy habits for mothers and kids.
That's smart. Using existing trusted community structures.
Yeah, it shows a really practical understanding of how to connect with people.
The article also mentions some international collaboration, something about a Franco-Moroccan health day.
It did, yeah. The Moroccan minister acknowledged French support for their health system reforms, talking about medical exchanges, scientific collaboration, and it ties into their broader progress too, like expanding mandatory health coverage. They mentioned over 25 million citizens are now covered.
That's huge.
It is. So overall, you see this really concerted effort in Morocco, especially focusing on mums and babies as a priority.
A very focused approach. Okay, let's shift gears quite dramatically. Diabetes research, you mentioned something potentially game-changing?
Yes, this one definitely caught my eye. Researchers in Australia, they've found 2 existing FDA-approved cancer drugs.
Cancer drug.
Yeah. That seemed to be able to restart insulin production in pancreatic cells. And get this, in just 48 hours in their lab tests.
Hold on, 48 hours. With cancer drugs, how does that work? What's the mechanism?
Okay, so the way it seems to work is these drugs target a specific enzyme. It's called EZH2.
EZH2, okay.
By inhibiting that enzyme, they found they could essentially reprogram other types of pancreatic cells. Not the insulin-producing beta cells that are damaged in type 1 diabetes, but other cells become functional insulin-producing cells.
So you're potentially making new insulin factories from different cells already in the pancreas.
That's the idea. It's not just managing blood sugar, it's potentially restoring the body's own ability to produce insulin.
That would be revolutionary for type 1 diabetes.
Absolutely. And the fact that these are existing FDA-approved drugs is a massive advantage.
Because they've already gone through safety testing for cancer, so the path to clinical trials for diabetes could be much, much faster.
Exactly. It cuts down development time significantly. It offers, a real sense of hope that maybe wasn't there before or seemed much further off.
Wow. Definitely one to watch. Okay. From potentially life-changing drugs to fungi in the nose? You weren't kidding about the range here.
Nope. This comes from a Portuguese study. They looked at the nasal microbiota. That's the community of fungi living in our nasal passages.
I didn't even know that was a thing, a nasal microbiota.
Well, it is. And this study suggests it might play a pretty key role in respiratory diseases like asthma and rhinitis.
Really? How so?
They compared kids with these conditions to healthy kids and the sick kids. They had a greater diversity of fungi in their noses.
More diversity. Isn't diversity usually good in microbiomes?
Usually, yes. But in this case, the increased diversity included several species that are known allergens.
Ah, okay. So it's not just diversity, it's what kind of fungi are thriving.
Precisely. And they also observed that some of these fungi seem to, adapt to the inflammation in the kids' airways.
So the inflammation might actually be creating an environment where these potentially problematic fungi do better.
That seems to be the implication. It's this complex interaction. It opens up this idea. Could we potentially target these fungi, or maybe a molecule they produce, as a new way to treat asthma or rhinitis?
Treating allergies by looking at nose fungi. That's definitely unexpected. Okay, another surprising link now from Japan. Season of conception influencing adult metabolism.
Yeah, this one's fascinating too. The researchers found that people conceived during the winter months might actually activate their brown fat more efficiently later in life.
Brown fat, that's the good kind, right? The one that burns calories.
Exactly. It generates heat by burning calories, unlike white fat, which mostly stores energy. So if your brown fat works better, you might burn more calories, potentially leading to a lower risk of being overweight.
So when you were conceived, winter versus summer could have a lifelong impact on how your body handles energy, how they mentioned epigenetics.
That's the hypothesis. Epigenetics is basically about how environmental factors can change how your genes are expressed without altering the DNA code itself. Think of them as like dimmer switches for genes.
Okay.
So the idea is that conditions around the time of conception, maybe temperature, maybe seasonal diet changes, who knows, could trigger these epigenetic changes that influence how brown fat develops and functions decades later.
That's mind-bending. The long-term echoes of our very beginning.
It really makes you think about those early environmental influences.
Definitely. Okay, let's switch gears to something very immediate, a product recall in Morocco.
Yes, this is important safety information. The Moroccan health authorities have issued an urgent recall for some batches of an ointment called aureomycin 1%. It's a yellow ointment.
Okay, aureomycin 1%. Why the recall?
They found a consistency defect, basically something wrong with the texture or uniformity of the ointment, and they're concerned it could potentially harm patients.
Right, you don't want to mess around with medication quality. Are there specific batch numbers?
Yes. People should check for batches 22043, 210046, and 1001.
22043, 210046, 1001. Got it. And what are pharmacies supposed to do?
Instructions are clear. Stop distribution immediately, return all stock of those batches, and provide a detailed report on the withdrawal, including plans for disruption.
Sounds like they're handling it properly. Good to know. Now, on to something many listeners might experience, waking up at night to pee.
Yes, the nighttime bathroom trip.
It happens, right. But the article asks, when does it become something to worry about?
That's the key question. Occasional nighttime urination, especially just once, is generally considered normal. But if it's frequent, the medical term is nocturia. That could signal an underlying issue.
Okay, so what sort of issues could cause frequent nighttime urination?
There are several possibilities. For men, an enlarged prostate as they get older is very common.
Right.
Diabetes is another big one. High blood sugar makes the kidneys produce more urine, even at night.
Didn't think of that connection.
Also, certain heart conditions, like heart failure, can affect how your body handles fluids, leading to more urination when you lie down. And then there's the antidiuretic hormone, ADH.
ADH, what does that do normally?
Normally, ADH levels rise at night, telling your kidneys to basically slow down urine production so you can sleep. But If that system isn't working properly, maybe due to age or another condition, you keep producing more urine overnight.
Okay, so if someone is getting up multiple times a night, what can they actually do about it? Are there practical tips?
Yes, the article suggests a few things to try first. The obvious one is limiting how much you drink in the evening, especially things like tea or alcohol, which are diuretics.
Makes sense.
Maybe create like a 2 to 3 hour window before bed where you really cut back on liquids,
A pre-bed dry zone.
sort of. And also strengthening pelvic floor muscles with regular exercises can help improve bladder control for some people.
Like Kegels.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then this is important,
Yes.
if you try these things and you're still frequently waking up to go, that's when you really need to see a doctor.
Right. Don't just assume it's normal if it persists. Get it checked out to rule out those underlying causes.
Absolutely. Self-management is fine up to a point, but persistent symptoms need a proper diagnosis.
Good advice. Okay, let's finish up with some positive news. You mentioned Morocco earlier, and there's more good news regarding their fight against HIV.
Yes, this is really encouraging. Morocco has seen a significant drop in its HIV infection rate, down 35% between 2010 and 2023.
35%. That's fantastic progress.
It really is, especially when you contrast it with what the article mentions from frontline AIDS, apparently. New infections have been increasing in the wider region, so Morocco is bucking that trend.
So what's behind their success?
A lot of it seems to be down to a new strategic plan they've put in place for HIV, STIs, and hepatitis running from 2024 to 2030. And the key word seems to be inclusive.
Inclusive, how so?
It means they're deliberately putting the key populations, the groups most affected or at risk, right at the center of their health policies.
Ah, so not just designing programs for them, but with them.
It's exactly actively involving them in designing and implementing the strategies. The article highlights the role of a national technical working group and, crucially, the deep involvement of civil society organizations.
That community buy-in makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
It's often critical for success in public health. And they're reaching a lot of people. The article mentions a good news of the week figure of over 1 million people reached per month through their efforts.
Wow, that's serious outreach.
Yeah, shows a massive ongoing commitment.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into 7-day Santé Conso, quite a journey. We've covered Morocco's big push on maternal and newborn health,
Right, that comprehensive strategy.
that potential breakthrough in diabetes, using cancer drugs,
The EZH2 inhibitors.
the unexpected role of nose fungi in asthma,
Still find that one fascinating.
the link between winter conception and metabolism,
The epigenetic angle.
an important ointment recall, practical advice on nighttime urination,
And the curia, yeah.
and finished with Morocco's really impressive progress against HIV.
It really paints a picture of just how varied health and wellness news is, doesn't it? From national policy down to, well, microscopic fungi and enzymes.
Absolutely. And staying on top of it all is tough, so hopefully this gave you a clear, concise overview of some key developments.
That's the goal, distilling it down for you.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Thinking about Morocco's success, particularly with their inclusive, community-centered approach to HIV and maternal health, what core lessons could other countries, maybe even our own communities, learn from that kind of strategy? How crucial is that deep involvement of the people most affected?
That's a great question. It really highlights how effective public health might need to be truly collaborative, doesn't it? Food for thought.
Definitely. Join us next time for another deep dive into the information that matters.